Hi everyone, welcome to Tasting History. I'm your host Max Miller, and today in Los Angeles, it's a little chilly. It's a little overcast. It's very odd, but it's fortuitous because it is the perfect weather to make one of Tudor England's favorite alehouse brews, hot buttered beer. Kind of sounded Australian. It was meant to sound English, but there it is, hot buttered beer. Today on Tasting History. Now, I'm sure most of you have read or seen Harry Potter, so of course you know Butterbeer. But this is not J.K. Rowling's Butterbeer, though I do love that J.K. Rowling goes to historic references for so many things in the Harry Potter books, Butterbeer being one of them. But that Butterbeer was drank by a bunch of 11 and 12-year-olds, so probably not highly alcoholic, maybe a little bit, because it is England, but, you know. In the stuff that you get at Harry Potter World, really nothing like this recipe. The recipe we're using today comes from Thomas Dawson's 1594 book, The Good Huswifes' Handmaide for the Kitchen, which reads, take 3 pints of beer, put 5 yolks of eggs to it, strain them together. Strain meant mix back then, but anyway. And set it in a pewter pot to the fire, and put to it half a pound of sugar, 1 pennyworth of nutmegs beaten, 1 pennyworth of cloves beaten, and 1 halfepenniworth of ginger beaten. And when it is all in, take another pewter pot and brew them together, and set it to the fire again. And when it is ready to boil, take it from the fire and put a dish of sweet butter into it, and brew them together out of one pot into another. Now the thing about most medieval and Renaissance recipes is we have to guess at a lot of this stuff because they weren't terribly specific. But this recipe is awesome because with the exception of exactly how much clove or ginger or nutmeg you got for a penny, we can basically recreate it exactly as it would have been done in Tudor times. I'm way excited about that. So let's get started. What you'll need is 3 pints, which is about 1,500 milliliters or 48 ounces of good quality British ale, a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger, a 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 225 grams of Demerara natural brown sugar. Now you can use just regular dark brown sugar if you can't find Demerara, because finding Demerara sugar is not so easy in the US. Then 5 egg yolks and 1 stick of unsalted butter diced. First, take your 5 egg yolks and beat them with the sugar until light and frothy. Then set that aside. Pour the ale into a saucepan. Now the recipe calls for a pewter pot, but who has that? I want one, but I don't have one yet. Christmas list. So I'm just going to use a deep saucepan. It needs to be fairly big for the amount of beer that we're putting in there, but you can also use a stock pot or a Dutch oven. Anything works just as long as it can go on top of the stove. So pour the ale into the saucepan and try not to let it get too frothy. Then stir in the ginger, the cloves, and the nutmeg. And heat over medium heat until the mixture comes to a light boil. Then turn it down and simmer on low for about 2 minutes. Now if you do want to make this for kids, if they're having a Harry Potter party or something like that, you can heat the beer up to 285 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 140 degrees Celsius, and let it boil for 20 minutes. You'll burn off almost all of the alcohol, at which point you can serve it to children. It'd be like a rum cake. But if you're serving this to adults, don't do that. 2 minutes is more than enough. You want to keep that alcohol in there. Once it's simmered for about 2 minutes, remove the pot from the heat and add in your egg and sugar mixture. Stir it in, then return the pot to low heat until the liquid starts to thicken. Now this takes about 5 to 7 minutes. If you don't really see it thickening, that's okay. It's not going to actually thicken that much. Don't turn it up, because if you turn it up to medium heat, you can actually scramble the eggs, or you can burn the sugar, and then you've just wasted 3 pints of good ale. So once you've simmered it on low for 5 to 7 minutes, stir in the diced butter until it melts. Then froth the butterbeer with a hand whisk. Then, still on low, let it simmer for another 10 minutes. Now while that's simmering, you really got nothing else to do, so go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, and listen to me chat you up about beer. I don't know why that keeps coming out as Australian. I really want to do English. Anyway, beer. Now beer, or ale, porter, lager, all of it, was drank by pretty much everyone in Tudor England every day. And by some accounts, the country was essentially a giant frat house. There was a big problem with binge drinking. Queen Elizabeth I even issued a ban on double beer, which had an extremely high alcohol content. Now don't get me wrong, she was no teetotaler, because in 1593, her own household went through 600,000 gallons of beer. It's good to be the queen. Now you're probably starting to wonder, why does this drink exist? Who thought it was a good idea to put spices and butter and eggs into beer? And I'll tell you, it's because beer was so important to the diet back then that it was extremely well regulated by the government. There was actually an official post of ale taster, or ale conner. So if you owned a tavern and you had a cask of ale that was starting to smell a little funky, throw some nutmeg in there, some cloves, heat it up, put an egg in it. Now it tastes great. But you couldn't do that to every cask of ale. Most people wanted just regular ale, and that's why they had the ale conner. The ale conner would go from tavern to test the quality of whatever beer that was being sold. If he deemed it unworthy, you got a fine. Or maybe a day in the stocks and had the ale poured over your head. Or in some extreme circumstances, you would actually be dunked into the river, which, because a lot of people didn't swim back then, could mean death. So, make good ale. Now, while it's called the ale taster, there are anecdotes, and they might just be anecdotes, of ale conners wearing leather breeches. They would go to the different ale houses, pour the ale out onto a wooden bench, and then sit in it. After a while, once the ale dried, they would stand up, and if their breeches stuck to the seat, then that meant there was too much sugar in the beer. They would be fined. Now again, that might just be an anecdote, old wives' tale. There's no way to tell, because according to most contemporary accounts, and to the official ale taster's oath, the best way to taste the ale was to taste the ale. And speaking of tasting, our ale should be just about done. So after your 10 minutes of simmering is done, remove the saucepan from the heat and allow the butterbeer to cool to a warm but drinkable temperature. Then whisk it up again, or if you want to follow the exact recipe, you whisk it by transferring it from one cup to another very quickly. But I don't have a scullery maid on hand to clean up all the cups, so I'm just going to use a whisk. Pour the butterbeer into a glass and serve warm. And here it is, hot buttered beer. It's actually really good. It's really good. It's quite nice. Really nice. I don't even know how to explain it. It's like creamy beer with spices, but it's really, really good. Now, if it's a hot day and you don't really feel like a warm beer, you can have it chilled, and which is actually really nice. You can take 1 part milk and 1 part the cold beer, mix them together, delicious. Now, the recipe and the ingredients are all in the description down below, so while I sit here and drink 3 pints of butterbeer all by myself, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and if you make your own butterbeer, leave me a comment and tell me how it went. And as always, join me next time on Tasting History.